Right, this is these are our last set of videos for chapter 4, and they're on target costing. And target costing really is I mean, it's really, it's not that people chose target costing. Target costing came along and defined how we talked about total quality management. So fundamentally just lay on the line what's going on, and then we'll go through the slides. Again, once upon a time when, if you like, manufacturing was big industry, big industries, key drivers, monopolistic behavior, you could make something and then decide what markup you wanted to put on top of it. So you can make something for £10, say you're going to put 50% markup, sell it for 15. And that's what would happen. And then new people would come into the market, and then and people just didn't, and also the lack of information. People just didn't have information about what other people were doing. So they would just be stuck with your 15. So monopolistic, cartelistic sort of behavior allowed people to do this sort of thing. But then again, as information, if you like, as more people got hold of information, as more people were able to compare what was going on with different sellers, people buyer power was increasing, and people would only be willing to pay, for example, 12. Now, if people are only willing to pay 12, you need to think again that no one will accept your 15, so in effect, your margin's cut to 2. So the argument is, if you still want to keep a margin of 5, you need to come back here and look at those costs and address them and sort of say, why is this thing 10? Are we giving the customer exactly what they want? Are we giving them unnecessary, non-real value areas here? So can we cut out those things that the customer doesn't truly need, and can we bring this down to 8? So or 7, forgive me. If we bring it down to 7 and we can only get 12 because what the customer is willing to pay, we can still make our margin of 5. You see, because ultimately this has always been about margins. And that's what's really going on here. So let's walk through this. Target costing involves setting a target cost by subtracting the desired profit from the competitive price, which you have no control over. Right, and so this is, if you like, a way of thinking about it. So what do we have here? When I say estimate, typically the market gives it to you, your selling price, if you like, and telling you how much other competitors are charging and how much consumers are willing to pay. And now from this selling price, you can then just deduct, like what I've said, what your required level of profit is, and then you now have, think of it like a target margin, if you like, whatever, 20% of sales. So so if you have £10, you take 20% of sales, that's 2 comes off, you now need to work to 8. That's kind of the relationship here. So it says produce a target cost figure for product designers to meet. That's kind of the argument here. Reduce costs to provide that thing. So this is a nice little example. Once upon a time, people would have done this cost plus pricing system. They'd go in there, they'd establish the cost first, do all the work. It's 15. A profit of 5 will be added on. Like I said, they'll try and sell the thing for 20. What are the consequences of this method of costing? Well, it ignores the fact that customers might not be willing to pay that, and so you have this scenario where you end up having to cut price to push out stock, and it just really doesn't look at what's going on in the market. It's very bubbly behavior. When I say bubbly, as you're in a bubble. But the key point again is, like, the truth is, I actually think people are looking at the market, and they know when they're price takers, and they know to what extent they can actually push their own price, and what segment they can push their own price. So I actually think in reality there's a splitting of behavior. For some of their products, they can behave in a cost plus pricing behavior, and some behaviors they would be price takers. And of course, well, cost plus pricing as well, that is true. I think this is the big point for us more. It's more about cost control, because if the argument is make the thing, we'll put a markup and we can sell it for what it is, as opposed to here's your benchmark, we want this amount of profit margin, work towards bringing the costs into that bracket here. And again, they're just sort of telling us what they can do. HMV in this example, bring it down to a competitive price, assume it's 15, for example, and then deduct whatever required profit is. So in this case, it's £5. They could have told you 20% margin or 15% margin. So you take the 15% of that, bringing it down, and then you now arrive at if you like, a required target cost is now arrived by deducting the required profit from the selling price. So we now arrive at that. And so the steps must be taken to close the target cost gap from, if you like, 15 to 10. So once we used to sell it, we used to cost at 15 because we sold at 20. Now we're costing it at 10. We want to cost it at 10, so we need to go from 15 down to 10. So we need to eliminate 5, if you like, of this issue here. And really ultimately this gap is referred to as a cost gap. And it is really essentially the difference between the organization thinks it can currently make a product for and what it needs to make a product for, if you like. And again, I highlight this thing where we're trying to look at where we can actually reduce cost without compromising quality. So I said that what we need to really ask ourselves is, what is it that the customer really wants with this product? If you like, is there too much packaging here? Do we need all this packaging? For example, can we get a cheaper material substituted without affecting quality? Can labor savings be made without compromising quality? So it's all about efficiency. Ultimately, you can see. Is it about motivation? What's going on here? Might it be economies of scale, buy in bulk, if you like? And we're looking at the cost savings. So we're really looking. You can see here we're looking at internal processes to ensure that we can find a better way to bring down these costs. Can part-assembled products be bought in to save on assembly time, if you like? So you can see a lot of things here to try and do to kind of reduce the costs. So fundamentally, this whole thing is referred to really as value analysis. What is it? Reduce those things that do not add value to your client. And if you like, in effect, cost engineering, really focusing on those areas to see what it is. And I mean, many organizations are doing this nowadays to remain viable. And value analysis asks of a product the following questions. Does the use of a product contribute value? And is that proportionate? Does it need all those features? Is it better for anything else? Again, kind of going back to what we're saying, looking to reduce costs, if you like, looking to reduce the costs. I think there's somewhere I'm trying to get to here. 1 second. It was, yeah, again, I think it's really this question of cost versus its relative performance. Is it worth it? We've talked about all these already. Fundamentally looking for ways, but you're not, if you write about it, I mean, that's great, but the key point is you want to be comfortable with the maths of it. So of course we were doing kid questions in class, but you want to try and make sure you get through all the examples on target costing, but they're very much about percentages and margins, and then you now just calculating what that target cost is. Cool, great. I think that brings us, yeah, that sits nicely within the 10-minute bracket, and that brings us to the end of chapter 4. That's the target costing.